welcome back to Ghouls Night In, the spooky chat show with your best ghoul friends. I'm Penny Snark.
And I'm Midge Munster.
Midge, fall is officially here.
Woo!
As of today that we are recording.
Yes.
And I just, as I was getting into the fall spirit, I started thinking about a favorite piece of media. Any of us spooky folks enjoy that. I actually did go back through our episode list because I was like, have we not talked about this yet?
I'm scared because I think you are going to beat me to something I wanted to do really bad.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But I'm happy at the same time.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What you got? What you got?
I got over the garden wall.
Yeah. Yeah, this has been one that I feel like has probably been on both of our lists since the dawn of
yes,
this pod.
Most definitely. Yes, if anyone is not familiar, which is hard to imagine.
I don't know. I come across people a lot of the time that
That's
don't
true.
have
It is
any concept of this.
I feel like it's very much like a cult fave in that, like, if you're part of kind of the whole autumnal vibe, you probably are familiar with it, but like the wider world maybe doesn't know.
Yeah.
But this is an animated miniseries that originally aired on Cartoon Network in November of 2014, which means, yes, this year is the 10th anniversary
Aww.
of the show, which is pretty cool.
Oh, that must be why so many people are doing like Hot Topic just did a license collection, and I
Yep,
thought that's interesting. Yeah,
Yep. It
that
is the
makes sense
10th
now.
anniversary, yes.
Cute.
Yeah, so it is, and actually, so I will say this now that I had already decided to do this and was prepping the episode, and then today Cartoon Network has posted a teaser that there's something coming for the 10th
Oh.
anniversary. So got to keep our eyes open. Got to keep our eyes open, see what's up. So I don't know.
I hope they don't give us the Hilda treatment. Hilda was like, "There's something coming," and it was a sticker pack.
Right. Yeah. I'm like, it is probably merch of some kind. Like, I'm not trying to
Yeah.
get too excited, but hopefully maybe it's cool merch. I do really like the Hot Topic collection.
I know.
That just came out is super cute.
That sweater, dude. Oh my god.
Yes. But yes, so this is a kind of a semi-anthology show. So it centers on the story of two brothers who are on an adventure through a very unique and interesting world. So there is like an overarching plot line of their journey, but each episode you kind of get different characters and different stories. It actually originally, I did not know this, aired over 5 nights. So it was like an hour, 2 episodes each night it would show. I usually watch it straight through like a movie because the episodes are only 10 minutes long.
They're so
it's
short,
like
yeah.
a movie length in total. But I would love to know, Midge, especially since I know you are a huge fan, how did you first come across the show? Did you watch it when it was first coming out, or kind of how did you come to the Over the Garden Wall fandom?
It was probably the year after it came out, because I was in college, but I was living off campus, which means it had to have been like 2015-ish. And actually, my friend Bryson that I lived with at the time, and I say this with all the love in my heart, Bryson and I typically did not share a love of similar media.
Yeah, different tastes.
Yeah, much like a cute little podcast co-host that I know, our tastes in media did not always align.
Happens to the best of them.
But he was getting ready to like sit through and watch he had watched it when it came out, and then it was on Netflix, and he was in our living room, was like, "Hey, I'm gonna watch this like thing, I think you would really like it." And I was like, and I think I've stated this pretty publicly on the pod, definitely other places, that like as a rule I'm not a fan of like animation that's made for adults. Just never has really sat with me. And he was a person who was very into like Archer and Futurama and those guys. Sure. So I thought that's what I thought I was getting. Okay, and I was No, I think I'm good. And then he was like watching it in the background, and I heard the soundtrack
Yes.
from like the other room, and I was like,
Ugh.
now wait just a gosh darn minute. Just wait a little second here. And yeah, was hooked immediately. We watched the whole thing through, and I have watched it at least once every single year since then. I think it's like darn near a perfect piece of media, if I do say
Mhm.
so myself.
Yeah. It is delightful. Yeah, I was definitely someone who came later to this. So have I have like memories of seeing it on like people talking about it on Tumblr and like seeing
Mhm.
things being like, "Oh, hey, that seems pretty funny." And obviously I had seen like the various memes of like pumpkin people
Yeah.
and stuff and I was eventually just like, "Huh, what is this thing?" Because I was
Mhm.
kind of like, oh, well, I mean, it's a kid show, so
Right.
like, I don't know how like intrigued I'll be. And I did like randomly see that it was streaming one fall and was like, I'll check it out. I'll see what this is like. And then was like, oh my God, this is so good. This is amazing. I
It
love it.
is. It's mesmerizing.
It is, it is. So I'm gonna give a little bit of history, and then I wanted to just
Have a
enjoy
vibe chat,
discussing
yeah.
it with you. Yes.
One of our favorite things to do,
One
a
of our
vibe a
favorite
vibes
things.
chat, yeah.
Mhm. So like many of the media pieces we have talked about on the show, this one has a longer history than one might first
Mm.
expect. So Patrick McHale is the creator of this show, and he had actually pitched a version of this concept called Tome of the Unknown to
Yeah.
Cartoon Network when he was fresh out of college. And they were like, "Hey, do you think you could turn this into a movie?" And he was like, "I think it should be a 3-season TV series." And I don't know if it would work as a movie. And it just didn't end up really going anywhere. And he worked at Cartoon Network as an animator and then was a creative director on Adventure Time and kind of set aside kind of his own projects. And then Cartoon Network in like 2011 was like, "Hey, do you want to pitch us something?" He was like, "Huh, maybe I should bring back this Tome of the Unknown kind of
Yeah.
concept." So they did make a 9-minute short by that name that was screened at several film festivals in 2013 and did actually win an award as an animated short at the Santa Barbara Film Festival. And Cartoon Network was like, yeah, we want to develop this into something longer. And it was actually the very first miniseries that the network had ever
Hmm.
produced.
That's, two interesting things here.
Yes.
One, I think this is my, like, sweet spot of media of things people didn't want to get made.
Yeah.
Because it's very similar to how Trick or Treat got
Yep.
made, like, with the short film screenings,
Mhm.
but what I think is really funny, which, I mean, slight spoiler here, but literally, I was thinking it's funny that this show, like, got so popular after there were so many rumors about the concept of Adventure Time and what that show was really about, and I
Mhm.
was like, "I wonder if he was at all inspired by how many people talked about Adventure Time." So if I didn't know he had worked on that show,
Yeah.
which is
Yep.
really, humorous now in retrospect.
Right. It all ties together.
Yeah.
It all ties together. But yeah, and it sounds like he had basically an idea for 18 episodes, and then it did end up getting adjusted to the 10. Um, but
Rude.
it came out, but and so I was reading in the interview because this is, I mean, this isn't a spoiler alert, but FYI, there is also a comics
Yeah.
series for this, which I have not personally read. And in the interview that I was reading, like the interviewer was asking him if like the stories in the comic were things that were like cut out from the TV show. And he said not really, and that like all of kind of like the elements from those extra episodes got kind of absorbed into like side characters and stuff in kind of what we see in Over the Garden Wall now.
Nice.
But what I want to talk about is reasons why this show is great. And I think that the most important part and the thing that brings so many of us to it is just this incredibly iconic aesthetic. This is so inspired by like the 1930s
Mhm.
cartoons, like 19th century Americana, it looks like a vintage Halloween postcard. Um,
Yeah, I
and
would
it's
call the
just
vibes, like, violently autumnal.
yes. So I there was a in one of the interviews I read, Patrick McHale describes it as being a fantasy of autumn, and
Yeah.
I'm like, yes,
It's like
this is like
what you wish it was, yeah.
well, it's I like the things where when you compare two things that are not actually the same senses, I'm like, this show looks like what a crunchy leaf feels like.
Yeah, yeah,
Like it
totally.
just is so cool, and I'm a big fan of like silly symphony and like old school animation and cartoons. So it's just very neat to see those influences kind of brought
Mhm.
here, but not I don't know, I feel like it feels very fleshed out as a world of its own.
Definitely, I agree.
Like it's and I think that you also like the stories kind of play into that kind of old-fashioned folklore sort of vibe.
Yeah, it has a very, like, almost like grim fairy tales
Yeah,
kinda, like, vibe to it, and, yeah, each episode is really, even though they're so short, the stories are packed full and really well thought out.
right. It's so crazy to me to like when I would because I was aware obviously that they're short, but when I'm thinking about it, I'm like, are these seriously like 10 minutes long? Because like you think of each episode and I'm like, oh
So
yeah,
much
like
happens.
there's so much happening. There's like a whole developed story going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, and again, like, the characters are so fleshed out for what is,
Hmm.
technically, like, a children's show that you get very invested very quickly, I guess is what I
Yes.
mean to say. And part of that is due to the fantastical voice acting of one
Mhm.
Mr. Elijah Wood.
Oh, so good. I know. He is so delightful. So he voices the older brother, Wirt. Um, and I did see in one of the interviews they were talking about how they added in like Wirt's poetry because they were like, it would be great to hear Elijah read this. They're like, we just want Elijah to have to
We
do
just wanna
this.
fuck around with Elijah's voice. And he's like, from what I've heard of people who have had the opportunity to meet him at cons and things, this is something he's very proud of as
Yes.
well. It's like one of his top projects that he's worked on, which just makes my heart happy.
Yeah, cause and I had not realized this, but he was in like, the original short has the same,
Mhm.
voices. So, like, he has been involved since the beginning and just brings I mean, see, this is I'm like, the new Mulder or Scully is, are you Wirt or are you Greg? And I'm definitely Wirt.
And, oh my, I think, so Greg is the younger brother.
Yes.
That type of character has such the ability to err on the edge of being just, like, insufferable and annoying,
Yes.
and the way that Greg is written is so endearing, so charming, so, like,
Yes.
just, like, sweet, and just the childlike awe of
Right?
everything.
He's so delightful, and I mean, I think a big part of that is that he was voiced by an actual child.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
not that voice actors don't do a great job doing kid voices, but I think especially in this kind of, like, specific sort of, like, childish
Dynamic.
whimsy kind of
Yeah.
character, like, it helps a lot that Colin Dean, is the actor who did it, and he was 8 when
Yeah.
the original short, so he was, like, 8 or 9 while recording this, and you definitely get that, like, pure vanilla
Yeah, you're like,
energy.
that's a kid. Yeah. Just a sweet baby angel. I literally Penny, last night, I don't even remember what was happening, but Taylor and I were on, like, a 4-hour road trip yesterday,
Mhm.
and one of my vocal stems is, "We've come to burgle your turts." And I got, like, in a loop stuck saying that in a 4-hour car ride with Taylor yesterday. He was like, "Oh, good."
Oh oh, good, the turts are
But
getting
the
burgled.
the turts are back. But it's better than my other from that show is I get stuck singing potatoes and molasses.
Oh,
So,
yep,
of the
that is a
2,
classic.
that was the better option.
I like the one thing so there's obviously lots of great moments and lots of great quotes, but the one thing that always sticks in my head is the horse going, "I want to steal." And that is what I think of.
Endicott Manor is one of my favorite episodes.
Yes, that was so
It's
I
so
had
funny.
I had that written down. I was going to ask about your favorite episodes because I feel
Oh, let's
like,
get into it.
obviously, episode two, in Pottsfield with Enoch is, I think, the most famous
Most
episode,
visually
just
fa yeah,
visually. Like, that
yeah.
is the one that visuals have spread kind of the most, so that even people who maybe haven't seen the show probably have seen the images from that. And it is very good and very spooky, but I love that crazy. That's episode five, where this guy thinks he's in love with a ghost.
Yes. And just, like, yeah, they're, like, tea, entrepreneurs, like,
Yes.
everything's just so, like, stupid and cozy, and I love it.
Yeah,
Um, my other actually, probably my top favorite episode is the what well, now, of course, I don't know what numbers these are or anything,
sure.
I didn't do my research ahead of time,
I
Mom.
I prepped this episode,
Uh,
so totally.
but the ringing of the bell episode,
Yes.
with Auntie Whispers
Oh,
is by far, I think, my favorite because it's I mean, again, talk about good, like, folklore. It's got a bit of, like, a
mhm.
Baba Yaga-esque, um,
Definitely.
vibe to it. It's where Burgle Your Turts is from.
Mhm.
Uh
We got we've got, a good example of amazing guest voices like Tim Curry
Tim
in
Curry is
there.
just here? Question
Tim Curry,
mark.
Christopher Lloyd. Of course, we've got the amazing Melanie Linsky,
Melanie Linsky is
who is a
the
delight.
Bluebird, yeah.
Um, but so many good peeps. And I thought that it was really interesting that there are like several musicians doing guest voices, because as you forecasted, Midge, the music is such like an integral part
Such a vibe. So
of
good.
the story. In one of the interviews that I read, he describes it as kind of like pre 1950s music. Like, there's a lot
Mhm.
of old timey jazz, there's jug band music, like American opera, and the Blasting Company is the name of the band, that did the music, and it's so beautiful, it's so good, and there's a reason that we all use that song from it for all of our fall videos.
Yes. Would you like to know, Penny, how I know that the name of that band is the Blasting
I would
Company?
love you to tell me, Mitch.
It's because they were my top listened artist on Spotify last year, and I opened it and I said, "Who the F is the
The
Blasting
Blasting
Company?"
Company.
And then I opened their, like, thing, their, like, page on
Yeah.
Spotify, and the top thing, of course, was most of the songs from Over the Garden Wall, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, I'm
Ah,
trained."
yes. Ah, yes.
Ah, yeah, that was me, can confirm.
Right, it's like, "Ooh, yep, that makes sense."
Just reminding me once again that I am insane.
Just
Uh,
insane for fall.
yes.
What other way can you be?
The the unsung hero song, I love that, like, when Greg is dreaming and it's the Old North Wind song with, like, the
Mm,
weird little Kewpie babies, that's when
yes.
the music and it's just stupid, but in a good way, like, in a
Yes.
such a good way. I and, oh, poo, what's her name? Langtree, Mrs. Langtree's
Oh, Miss
song,
Tree.
also a banger.
Yes, a classic. And it is, it's just it's very, like, it's surreal, but also like with very grounded emotional stakes, I would say.
Yeah.
And I mean, it it grows in ways you may not expect from when you first start watching it, which I think
Yeah,
is
in a
really
big way.
fun. And that is just always, I don't know, I really like the miniseries format for this. Like, I think it makes a ton of sense, and I definitely see like going back to the idea that this was going to originally be an idea with like a book as a frame story, that it was this tome of the unknown, that like you were going through like stories in a book. And
Mhm.
even though that's not strictly like in the full version, you can definitely see kind of where that all came from. And it really, so I don't know if you were into this. I feel like this is kind of an old people thing to like, but I was really into The Wind in the Willows when I was a kid,
Oh, yeah,
which is like Mr. Toad
right.
and Badger and stuff. There was an animated one that I was really fond of, and this reminds me a lot of Wind in the Willows. And so I think that it especially hits like a nostalgic place for me.
Yeah, I could see that. I did not personally get into that specific. I mean, I was a frog and toad kiddo and like
Yes. Oh,
an
yeah. That's also very much in the autumn vibe.
right, like that similar like animals wearing posh clothing.
Yes, that's what I'm like, I just love a well-dressed critter having an adventure. Like,
I do too. I do
you
too.
you gotta have that, and you definitely get that in Over the Garden Wall. I love how just like the people and the creatures just kind of live in harmony, and no one's like super remarking upon it.
Yeah, yeah, there's never really any moments of like, "Huh, that's odd."
Yeah, everyone's just like, nope, yep, this is the way it is. This is the way it
Yeah.
goes.
Yep, that's our pumpkin god, like
Hmm. Oh,
mhm.
sure. Yep, this is a steamboat full of frogs
Another
hanging out.
fantastic episode.
So good. So good.
The frog is one of my favorite characters.
He
Anything
is a delight.
anything with a frog has my I that was like my version of horse girl. I was like a frog kid.
Frog kid.
Yeah, like in a big way. So I love little Jason Funderburker.
Yes. I do love that. Yeah, I mean, mostly I was just sitting at home and I was like, I should watch Over the Garden Wall. And then I was like, no,
I should talk
I
about
should do an episode about Over the Garden Wall. So this is not one where there's a great reveal or deep facts at the end. It was just like, if you haven't watched this, you should watch it, and if you have watched it, it's time to watch it
it's time to
again.
watch it again. Uh,
I love how much like cool stuff people have created for it. Because like our friend Chelsea did an Over the Garden Wall themed like Halloween decor. And that was so cool. And I actually, right before we were scrolling on this, I literally saw someone who has the rock face purse that she made
that's a
for
rock
cosplay.
fact.
That's a rock fact. And that's the part of me that's Greg, is the rock fact part.
Yeah, well, there's just like this so much iconic imagery. Like almost
Yes.
every character or like thing in this show is a standout piece that you can
Mhm.
like look at and be like, "Oh, that's Over the Garden Wall."
Yep.
Um I actually here's the reveal. You said you wanted a
Ooh,
reveal.
y'all wanted a twist,
Y'all
eh?
wanted a twist. I last year before I got super violently ill designed an over the garden wall Ouija board,
Oh,
and it's I have to share it with you because you're my Ouija girl.
yes.
It's really really cool. But originally, my intent with that, I had like a whole video planned for November that I wanted to do like an over the garden wall dinner party
Oh,
episode
that
of
would
my
be
on my
so
YouTube
fun,
channel.
yeah.
And so that is coming now this year now that I am
Ooh,
well. So
sneak
there's
peek.
your yeah, keep a lookout for that because I've literally had that video written down for 2 years and
Oh,
wanted to
that'd
do
be
it.
so good.
And yeah, this show's just great. And I wish like we could go more in depth, but without
Yeah, I don't
ruining the show.
mhm,
I don't want to do that to anyone I don't want to rob you of seeing this for the first time.
yes, exactly.
Um,
That's I was like, we can't do no full spoiler on this one
Mm-mm.
because I
No.
if you haven't seen it, you should watch it, and it's best to be seeing it. I Even though I came to it late, I got to see it without being spoiled for anything, and that was definitely like the best way to go about it.
Yeah, agreed. So go watch it. What are you doing?
What are you doing? And there was just a whole panic. People were panicking because they were like, it's coming off of Hulu, but apparently it's not. So
Oh.
it's fine. So you should be able to watch it.
I think
And
it's
we shall see what
also
Cartoon Network has planned for us.
yeah, I think it's also like always on HBO Max, isn't it? That's where I usually watch it, I
Or
think.
maybe it was Max that it was being taken off
No,
of or
it was
something.
Hulu. You're
Okay, it
right.
was Hulu. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. That is also an option. Um, but yeah, I just think that it's a really good show and it's so beautiful. I would like to live inside it and, spend some time in the unknown.
Yeah. And it's a perfect like either transition into October or out of this is actually a
Mhm.
show I usually watch to kind of like my post-Halloween blues because it isn't Halloween specific, it's like autumn
Yeah.
specific. So, really good show to like now's a great time, but also if you're like, I can't commit to that right now, this is my busy season. Hold on to it and watch it after the day after Halloween and like let yourself grieve
Right.
and just enjoy the vibes. That's a really good little ritual that I usually do is like November 1st is over the garden wall day for me.
Yeah, it was so interesting to me to see that it aired November 3rd,
Mhm.
initially, and I was like, "Oh, like, that is actually a great time to show
Yeah.
it." It's no Silence of the Lambs on Valentine's Day and Hocus Pocus in July. You got Over the Garden Wall in November where it belongs.
Where it belongs.
Uh, yes, I hope that you enjoy the show. I would love to hear about what your favorite episodes are. So if you want to talk back to us, you can definitely stay in touch. One of the best ways that you can talk back is by leaving a review. You can leave those on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify now. They're adding them all over the place. But you can also always send us a message on Instagram if you are not able to leave one where you listen. And we like to read our reviews on this show. Do you have one to share today, Mitch?
I do, and I have something a really uniquely submitted review.
Oh.
Speaking of talking to us, I received a postcard just yesterday in the mail from one Matt Woods, our friend
Oh.
and very talented artist who we've talked about before. He makes the calendars that run from October to October with his pumpkin head art.
I was going to
Uh,
say the noted creator of Pumpkinhead.
the noted creator of Pumpkinhead. And I ordered my calendar, which, by the way, now features the Ghouls Night In anniversary
Ooh,
on the
the most
calendar,
auspicious day of the year.
which is very cool. And Matt sent along a postcard that is addressed to Penny and I. So I'm going to read that now because it's very fun. So this is Midge and Penny. Sometimes I speak out loud when listening to Ghouls Night In, as though you can hear me. Dot dot dot. Can you?
Mm.
I got this postcard years ago when I visited the Capuchin Crypt and thought you'd appreciate it. You would appreciate this little memento. If you ever get the chance, I would definitely recommend it. Keep up the ghoulish work, Matt. So yeah, this is from
Ooh.
addressed from Il Convento dei Cappuccini. I'm assuming that's in Italy.
Seems
But it's a
likely.
very, very cool bone church, is what it appears to be on the front.
Hell yeah.
So a very, very appropriate for this here podcast. And thank you, Matt. We can hear you. We keep our spirit ears open
Keep
when we're
talking.
yeah, keep talking at us.
You can also, if you can try talking out loud. We'll probably hear it, but if you want to make sure we see it, you can also find us on Instagram. We are at Ghouls Night In Pod, and you can find me at Penny Snark.
And you can find me all over the web at Midge Munster.
And until next time, good
Goodbye.
bye.